right, everybody. Before you start working on Project 2C, we need to examine this tool. You may have looked at it with me, we may have covered it in a slide, but nothing's better than actually getting a good old-fashioned look. And this right here is the MicroStop. This is your countersinking tool that you're going to need to use to prepare your metal to accept flush rivets. I hope this comes through pretty good on video, but the reason they call it a MicroStop is because you can set this tool and each and every countersink you make will be identical. And the way that it works, it's spring loaded, and maybe this is focusing. As you pull back this lock, you can turn this outer shell in or out to increase or decrease your depth. Once you release the back shell here, these little teeth lock that setting in place so that it won't move. Then you will tighten your lock here to the back side of this back shell that locks everything in place. So we can take some scrap metal, set this tool up, and then every time you countersink, she'll be just right. Now we're going to set up some scrap metal here, and I'm going to show you a few things. Remember that this is just the MicroStop itself. For each rivet size, and pardon me for leaning over, for each rivet size, we're going to change out the cutter itself. The cutter goes into the tool, is threaded just like a bolt would be. You thread the right cutter and make sure you're using the right angle of cut for the particular rivet. And as you see on the very end of the cutter, there's a nib, an alignment pin. That has to match, all right? It has to match the drill bit size for the rivet that you're going to be installing. If this is too small when you put it in the hole, it won't be able to guide this cutter. It'll bounce around, it'll make a mess out of your metal. If it's too large, of course it won't fit the hole. So we select the right cutter, install it in the tool. Then we drill some practice holes in some scrap metal. Take the rivet that you're going to use and use it as an example. We may have to increase the depth a little at the time until we get that rivet setting nice and flush with the outside of your metal. So we're going to take a look at that. Now we've got some scrap metal here. We've drilled a couple of practice holes. I'm going to pull this lock back, pull the back shell, and I'm going to turn this out until there's very little cone sticking up past this edge. I'd rather start shallow and increase the depth than have to drill a bunch of holes, because if you go too deep, there's nothing we can do. I'm going to line the pin on the cutter up with my hole, and notice I'm going to hold the drill straight so that it's setting flush on the material. Our MicroStop's setting nicely. And I'm not going to pull the trigger and go wide open on the RPMs. I'm going to use a medium to low RPM. And I cut, but I can already tell this is nowhere deep enough yet. So I thread my lock back. I pull this back shell back. And I'm going to thread this outer cover in some to increase the depth. I'm going to go back to that same hole. Hold it flush, run a nice controllable speed. Now that cut a little bit deeper. We're getting close enough maybe to see how a rivet will fit. I kind of got lucky. I turned it in almost perfectly, but it's still just a little bit above the metal. I can feel it. So I'm going to come back my lock down. I'm getting close enough now. I'm going to try 2 clicks. Nice little cut. I drop my test rivet back in, and I know you can't see how this feels, but as I run my finger across, it's setting very, very nicely flush with the metal. So that's how we set up our countersink tool. Now, if I jump over to this other hole, now that my tool's been set and everything's locked in place, all I've got to do when I go to my workpiece is use that same setting. That rivet will drop in and be the exact same height over and over. Remember this, when you change your cutter sizes out in the micro stop, get some scrap, do this process, because every time you change the cutter size, your old setting will no longer work for you. If you need to change your cutter out to go, say, from a number 4 to a number 3 rivet, if you see here, all these cutters have a hole through them. You can simply turn it. I use this pin punch. It's the perfect size. You can simply turn that cutting bit out. It's just like a bolt. Screw it out, screw your other one in, just a little bit of tightness. Go through this process, reset your depth, lock your tool, and you can consistently make very nice countersinks for every flush rivet you're going to shoot. Hopefully, that'll help you out when using this tool. If you have any further questions, of course, you can always contact me. Reach me through the Learning Management System. As always, be safe, do good work.